はい、皆さんお疲れ様です。ちょっとですね、今日、彼の方でケビンなんですけれども、英語で話すので、ここの字幕が表示されるんですけれども、ちょっと字がですね、そんなに大きくないので、ちょっと見えない方ももし見えやすい位置に前に進んでいただいた方が見やすいかなと思っております。質疑応答に関しては、私の方で、翻訳、通訳をするので、そこは問題ないんですけれども、で一応資料も、日本語にはなっております。はい、一応もし見えない方は前に、言っていただいた方がいいかなと思っております。はい、ということで、早速始めたいと思うんですけれども、今回はですね、XR ゲームマーケティング最前線ということで、タイニーブレイン社という、イギリスの会社なんですけれども、彼が今回、日本の方に、来まして、どうやっていわゆる今メインのマーケットである、米国、市場、欧州もそうですねっていうところを戦略、成功していくのかっていうところを、お話しいただきます。はい、ということで、ケビンさんよろしくお願いします。
Hello. Okay, great. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm going to talk today about how to market VR games or XR games in general in Western territories. I do talk quite fast in English, so if the translation isn't keeping up, please somebody just signal me and I'll slow down a bit so we can get the live translation going. So before I dive in, I want to talk a little bit about who I am. I've been working in VR for over a decade now, and there is a lovely description of me there provided by one of my colleagues. I've worked on many different projects over the years. Some of you who've been in VR for a bit longer might know VR Focus. I was the founder and editor at VR Focus. I've also worked on numerous other initiatives such as the VRDI, which was a not-for-profit organization designed to upskill people from different backgrounds. During the course of that program, we had over 100 people with different disabilities trained on how to create VR content. Also, the VRC was a series of game jams held in London, and we had several participants from that go on to make products that were launched later on MetaQuest headsets. My most recent project is 131XR. This is just a YouTube channel that I launched earlier this year. I hope every single one of you is going to get out your phone and subscribe right now. Thank you very much. And my current company is Tiny Brains. As you can see there, the brain wearing a VR headset. And what Tiny Brains does is we work with independent VR and AR developers to help bring their products to market. This can be hardware, but it's mostly software and mostly games, as I myself have a background in the games industry. Now, what I'm going to dive in on today is the techniques that we use for marketing VR games in Western territories, and this is English-speaking countries. So this includes North America, parts of South America, Europe, the Middle East, and so on. I'm not going to talk too much about the differences in terms of what you might do in Japan versus what we would do, because honestly, I know nothing about marketing in Japan. That's not my expertise. I'm pretty sure everyone here could tell me how to market a game in Japan. But I do specialize in the West, as I say, in English-speaking countries. So just as a principle, so you know the kinds of things I'm going to dive in, I've got two images up here. The first one is a game from Japan, and the second one is a game from the UK. Now, you wouldn't believe it by looking at these two images, but both of these games, when you play them, they are both very similar in terms of the aesthetic, in terms of the way they look. They are both incredibly brightly colored experiences, fast-paced, and suitable for people of all ages. But as you can tell by the artwork, the Western art has got much more subdued hues. The colors have been diluted and toned down a lot, despite the fact that when you're playing them, they're both incredibly brightly colored experiences. And this is just one example of how things are going to be different between Japanese marketing and Western marketing. So I'm going to talk at first, before going into some case studies, about the marketing mix. For anyone who's not familiar, the marketing mix is a term we use that encompasses all the different aspects of marketing a product. In terms of VR games or XR games, this includes influencers, content creators, such as YouTube and TikTok and so on. It also includes press, the media. I myself, as I say, have a background in the media, so I know all too well what it takes in order to get somebody to write about your game. I'm sure everyone here is familiar with Magura VR. So the publication I ran was basically the UK equivalent. Magura is how you pronounce it? Yeah. So again, yeah, very familiar with what it is that press want to hear and see in order to encourage them to write about your game. Then there's also community platforms, Discord, Reddit, and live events, such as the event we're at here today. But obviously, if you're going to be launching a consumer product, there are other events that are more targeted towards that consumer audience. And then finally, we have social channels. Now, I mentioned TikTok before, but there's a difference between working with content creators on TikTok and managing your own TikTok. And also Instagram, X, formerly known as Twitter, and Facebook. I'm going to talk a little bit about all these things and break them down individually, but I want to dive in now to my first case study. I'm going to talk about 2 different titles that we've launched this year. And this first one is Hidden Pictures Agent Q. Now, this is a game that was made in South Korea by a company called Pneumatic. I'm not sure if anyone's heard of it, but it is a lovely, cute little puzzle game. The idea of the game, essentially, is that you have these characters called Tumai, and they have tasks for you to complete, which involves rotating the world and finding items and delivering them to the correct Tumai to subsequently unlock new areas and new little tasks. And you have to satisfy all these human characters in order to stop an alien invasion. It's super cute, super wonderful. I recommend you all give it a try. So before we started working with Pneumatic, we're going to talk about social media first. Before we started working with Pneumatic, they were posting on social media, on Twitter/X, Facebook, Instagram, and so on, but they were taking a very different approach to the way that we would do so. To begin with, they were using these channels, Twitter and Facebook, solely as announcements. They were putting up screenshots from their game. They were talking about when the release date was coming, the price, and so on. But that was it. They were simply using the platform to promote their product. And thus, they weren't getting in much engagement. There was no community feel towards the social media. There was no interaction with other channels, and this is very key when you're marketing a game in the West. You need to ingrain yourself within the VR community at large. And also, they were posting quite erratically. They are a company from South Korea, so their timeline is obviously very different to a Western audience, but there didn't seem to be any kind of set schedule. They weren't optimizing the content they were putting out on a global scale. It was all targeted towards domestic. So when we took over, we changed all of that. We threw out everything they'd done and started over across all of these channels. So we were posting about the VR industry and games in general, as well as their own products, as well as the important announcements and information about the game. We, instead of simply posting a screenshot or a trailer and saying, hey, come try our game, we would immerse ourselves within the VR community, celebrating successes of other games that existed in the VR space. The VR industry is still quite small. It's not anywhere near the size of traditional gaming. And so there's a real community feel about the way that VR games are coming to market. So by using your channels to celebrate the success of other VR developers and VR creators, you can expect the same in return. And so we were finding that by simply congratulating other studios when they launched their game or similar, they would then in turn use their channels to do the same, amplifying the reach of our content. We also were posting to a very strict schedule. One thing that we emphasize in doing, and I will be talking about a lot in this talk, is that you never truly know what the most optimized way of posting content is going to be until you try it. A lot of our clients have come to us saying, we believe our game is a TikTok game. And so they wanted to concentrate on advertising on TikTok. But we would always argue that making that assumption is the wrong way to go about things. Try everything first and see what proves itself out to be the most successful channel for you, and then double down on those. But if you're going in saying, we want TikTok, and ignoring all the other channels, you're never going to know if you would have found success on those channels. So to begin with, when we take over social media, we will post all kinds of content across all kinds of hours in multiple different time zones. I can't tell you the amount of times I've woken up at 4 a.m. to make sure a tweet has gone out. And then we will find what is truly the optimized schedule for each individual title, for each individual studio that we work with. And we will create a very specific schedule of content to go along with that. So this is what the social media growth looked like. After we'd optimized their schedule and created their content, this was the first month of growth on their channels. I'm pretty satisfied with that TikTok number, if I'm honest. The studio had been running these channels for, I believe, around 6 to 7 months before we took over, and within 1 month, we had delivered this growth. So moving on, I'm going to talk about the press now, media. Before you reach out to any kind of journalist or any kind of writer, there are 3 things that you really need to consider. Firstly is researching the publication itself. There's no point in reaching out to a tech publication to talk about how your game plays. Instead, you want to take the angle of what tools you've used, what ground you're breaking in terms of the technology that the software offers. And there's no point in doing that with a games publication. With a games publication, you want to reach out and talk about the way the game plays, how it makes people feel when you're in your experience. So make sure that before you do any kind of communication with press or journalists, you know what their target audience is. Also, it's super important to make sure that once you have a writer interested in reporting on you, you give them plenty of time to dig in, do their own research, and create their story, their content, before you need it to go live. There's no point sending a press release about a big new feature you're launching an hour before that new feature arrives. No journalist will have time for that, and it will immediately go to the bottom of their pile. And trust me, as someone with a lot of experience as a journalist, the bottom of their pile is never got to. Also, you need to be aware of competing deadlines. I mentioned Magura VR earlier. If you were looking to get a news piece published on Magura VR today, you should not send it today. It's quite obvious that they are going to be busy with this event. So that news piece, that story that you wanted them to publish, should have been with them 2 weeks ago. So they had time before this event to get prepared and get it ready. No journalist will simply just throw up an article without doing research beforehand. So you need to give them time to dive in and understand what you're talking about and create their own conclusions and write their material. So when it comes to those communications, the easiest way to get your message across is to create a press release. And there's some very basic tips that need to be taken on board for creating this content, for writing those press releases. Generally, there is a universally accepted format for press releases, but you can be a bit flexible with the way that you present that document, as long as you follow this little pyramid for structuring it. Firstly, you need to make sure that all of your important information is in the first paragraph. The name of your studio, the name of the project you're working on, the formats it's going to launch on, the release date, everything that is important should be within the first 2 sentences of your press release. You also need to write it as if you were the writer yourself. Like I say, no real journalist is ever going to just copy and paste what you're writing. But if you write it in such a way that they could, it makes it far easier for them to then go on and do their own research. They already have all the information and written out in a tone that is suitable for their audience. So all they need to do then is add their own flavor, put their unique style to it. And finally, you need to include a press kit link and your contact details on every single piece of material that you distribute. There's no point firing off a press release to 15 different publications if they can't find any videos or trailers or screenshots or key art to go with that piece. And give them options. If you simply send your press release with 2 screenshots and a logo, those 2 screenshots and that logo will stay glued to Google forever. You want to offer variety, so if you are targeting 10 publications, they each are using different art. So it gives you variety as the lifespan of your game continues. So this is an example of a press release that we put out. As you can see, we have the date of the press release itself. We have where the company is based and the company name. We have the formats it's launching on. We have the title of the game. And we have what this news is about, all in that very first paragraph. It takes you 30 seconds to understand exactly what this press release is about because it's all right there in front of you. Then we also conclude the press release, as you can see at the bottom here, with all the important links. That's my email address. Feel free to email me about anything that you like, whether it be about VR marketing or not. I'm always up for a chat. And also we have all of the respective information of the title, the link to buying it on the store, the press kit, which I will dive into more detail on later, a link to join in the Discord so they can communicate directly with developers if they so wish, and in this case, the trailer specifically for this press release. Now, the trailer will also be in your press kit. By giving them that link immediately on that press release, they don't have to dig, they don't have to follow any clues. It's right there. They can immediately watch it and understand what it is you're talking about. So from all of that, from that first press release, this is some of the coverage that we got. I'll go into a bit more detail on how the results we got in a little while. But as you can see, there are a wide variety of the ways in which people cover this news. The DLH.net simply used our headline. They took what we said and just reproduced it. Games Press is a publication that's targeted, B2B publication essentially, and anytime we write material, they use it exactly as we write it. And then we have Upload as well. I'm pretty sure 90% of you will probably have heard of Upload. And they ran a story based on our press release. It wasn't the same. They took their own information, added their own research, contacted us for further information and an opportunity to work with Pneumatic directly, and they developed their own story. From that same press release, we got a bunch of video content as well, as you can see. Upload again. They reached out, got access to the game, and produced content of their own. And we had a few different VR influencers that have also produced their own content. The one on the top right, the VR gameplay, that is the gentleman actually sat down and played the game for nearly 2 hours and produced this video. And this is for a game that had already launched. This was for a DLC update for the game. So, after that first month of social media and that one press release, this is the results that we got. 91 different publications covered that one story. In VR, that's very impressive. That was definitely a pat on the back moment for us. You can see the ratio of press to influencers. Press is still leading the way, but that's because generally in the VR industry, press are a great way to get influencers to learn about your game. Most influencers, if not all influencers in VR, are working in VR because they love the medium. So they will be reading all of the news outlets to keep up with the latest news, to understand what games are coming and when they're launching. So if you're looking to get influencers involved in your project, the best way to get their attention is to get news stories on media outlets. So talking about influencers, carrying on, talking about influencers some more. We have similar rules to what we had with press. Firstly, research the channel. There's no point in going out to a channel that's dedicated entirely to Beat Saber and trying to get your shooting game on there. It's never going to work, and even if it does, you're not going to get the right audience. Again, ensure the creators have plenty of time. If you want coverage, if you want them to play your game and put out a video, say Tuesday next week, your email should have left your inbox Tuesday this week. And also you need to know your budget, if you have any, for content creators. I say that you want to know this before beginning your outreach because we at Tiny Brains, when we do this outreach on behalf of our clients, we always reach out trying to request that the influencers do coverage for free in the first instance. Some of them will often come back and say, we'd love to cover it, but pay us. And when they do, we will assess which ones are the right ones for the project we're working on out of the budget that we have available. If you don't know what your budget is before you begin your outreach, you might have some influencers come back and say, yes, we can do it for X amount, so you sign with them, but then a better influencer comes along or a more targeted influencer comes on a little later, and suddenly now you don't have the budget left. So make sure you know what your ambitions and your targets and your price, your budget is before you begin that outreach. And take your time, wait for their responses to come in, and make sure you properly assign that budget. When you're reaching out to influencers, there are some really, really simple techniques which I'm sure everyone here would do anyway, but just to go over it, make sure you're polite, but also direct. Influencers these days receive, for every email you've sent in the same day, they've received 20 others asking the same thing. So be polite, but be direct. Keep your email short. Tell them what your game is and what you want them to do with it. Blanket emails are often ignored. That means if you're sending out emails to 20, 30, 40, 50 influencers and just BCC in them, expect less than a 5% reply ratio on that. Influencers and content creators generally, you should write individual emails to each one of them. While you're keeping your email direct, make sure you reference their channel. Make sure they know that you're not just sending out a blanket email in the hopes of throwing a fishing line and catching a fish. You actually care about having your content on their channel. And while emails do work, they sometimes just fall flat. So don't be scared of using Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or Discord to reach out to content creators directly. They are modern press, essentially, and so they use modern techniques. So if you're not getting a response of an email, try again 2-3 days later on Twitter/X or Discord. Again, these are some more coverage examples that we've got for hidden pictures and some other titles that we've worked on. I'm not sure how many people here will recognize these influencers, but all of the ones here are huge in Western territories, depending on what kind of thing you're looking to launch. So, as I mentioned, you want to know your budget before you start. Some of those influencers on the previous slide were paid, some of them were free. And when you're thinking about your budget, as I said, you want to know what it is before you even begin your outreach. And then once you have responses, some of which will say, I would love to cover your game, please send me a key, and off they'll go and they'll cover it. Some of which will come back and say, yes, please, but this is how much I'll charge. Wait until you have a large amount of responses, a large pool, and then assess from the ones who want to be paid, which ones are best for your title, and every game is going to be different. So what criteria do you need to use to assess which influencers are the right ones? This criteria. So firstly, obviously the price. You need to make sure that the influencers are within your budget. And I often say it is better to go with 5 to 10 smaller influencers than it is one big influencer. You need to make sure that they have the right audience. Again, there's no point going out to a Beat Saber channel with a first-person shooter. Vice versa. There's no point going out to someone who plays lots of first-person shooter games with your new rhythm action game. And the third criteria that we want to concentrate on is engagement. You want to get a ratio of the price that they want to the size of the audience that they have and the engagement that that audience brings. If they have the right audience for you, if, again, you are bringing a shooting game and they are a channel that covers a lot of shooting games, that's great. That feels like it's going to be the right place to put your game. But you need to check that engagement ratio. If they have lots of views, but no likes, no comments, and so on, the audience isn't particularly engaged. They may have been picked up by YouTube's algorithm and are doing well, but their audience isn't engaging with their content. So don't simply look at the number of subscribers a channel has. Look at the amount of time people are taking to engage with the content on that channel. We often have clients say to us, we want to be on X channel because they've got 2 million subscribers. And we'll say, that may be true that they have those 2 million, but their engagement rate is so low, you are actually better going for a channel that has 5,000 subscribers because their audience is actively engaged with the content they're promoting. Their audience will watch the entirety of the video that they put out on your game. So in addition to press and influencers and social media, we also have community platforms. Now, in gaming these days, Discord is the big one. But there are other channels that you can engage with your audience on. There's YouTube and Twitch, where you can talk direct to an audience. And there's also Reddit. And Reddit is an interesting one. Reddit is a place where you can go and get community feedback for your game, and they will be brutally honest. Don't expect everybody to say nice things about your game on Reddit, but do expect to find that audience that love what you're doing. And in turn, you can make what we call free evangelists. So these are people who will talk about your game, talk about your project in a positive light, even when you're not there. And those are the kind of people that you want to draw back into your Discord. And we do this by offering them tokens. Simple things like if someone says in an argument about, I'm going to use the example of shooting game again. If there's a debate about shooting games on Reddit and someone in that debate mentions your game, reach out to them, offer them an extra key to give to a friend, offer them a t-shirt if you've had some made. And you'll turn these people into free evangelists. They will act on your behalf to share the good word about your studio and your game in the VR community. So with these online community platforms, there's also offline community platforms. Now you can attend shows such as this one here, which I'm sure all of you do. In the West, one of the biggest that we have right now is GDC. If you're launching a game, the Game Developers Conference is a good place to go. You will not get a consumer audience at that show, but every single journalist that covers VR will be at GDC, and a lot of the American influencers. So we often tell our clients that even if you don't think you can afford a booth at GDC, it's a good idea to attend and book meetings in and do ad hoc demos. Carry around a MetaQuest in a backpack and meet with journalists and meet with influencers and offer them demos on the show floor, just in a quiet corner somewhere. And you would be surprised at the response you will get to this. As long as you schedule the meeting with plenty of time so that influencers and journalists can arrive late, which they will, because they will be busy, they will be very open to you suggesting, hey, there's a quiet corner there, let's go have a demo. You don't necessarily need to spend thousands of dollars on the booth, as long as you are willing to provide the influencer or journalist with the time and consideration that they need. So I'm going to dive into our second case study now. I'm going to talk about Neolithic Dawn. This is an American title that we launched in early access back in the summer. And yesterday, we announced the full release version is coming next week. So as I said earlier about the way that we handle a social media schedule, this is what it looks like. We're breaking down here the date that we're doing something, the kind of content, the channel it's going out, what time it's going out, the copy that we're including in that post, and also the location of the asset. All of this stuff is vitally important so that everybody in your studio that needs to know these things knows exactly what's happening, at what time, on what day. And this is a communal sheet that we do, and when we work with our clients, we typically devise this sheet a month in advance. Now, we have it flexible enough, so if there's some major world tragedies and we don't want to talk about certain aspects, we can be flexible. We can remove certain posts and optionally put other things in. And we're also flexible enough that when new opportunities arise, we can add in additional content should be necessary. You can see at the start there are some days with empty spaces. So if an influencer puts up a video and we want to promote that, we have room to do so. We have room to maneuver around what is happening both in the XR industry and around the world. And this is what the social media channels look like for Neolithic Dawn. As you can see, they are very heavy on content. In the bottom, I don't know which one it is, the fourth one along with the greenish background, that is James, the CEO of Neolithic. And he is very, I don't know how you'd phrase it over here. Looks good on camera. Looks good on camera. What's photogenic, we call it. Do you have a phrase? Okay. So James is very photogenic and loves being on camera, and he's the CEO of the company. So we created tons of video content with him in it because he's quite a charming guy and it looks good on camera. So don't feel that the image that you need to portray is one solely about the game. The XR community is very open to learning about the people that work on these games, that are involved in these projects. These are the channels that they have for Neolithic. The reason why I have included this slide is you can see that all of them have strange names. Neolithic Dawn, Neolithic VR game, Neolithic Dawn, Neolithic VR game. It's not universal. A lot of people worry that their name needs to be the same on every single channel, and that's not actually true. And the reasons for this is, some of your audience will only have Instagram. They won't have Twitter or X. Some of them will only have Facebook. Some of them will only be on Discord. What you can do is you can combine all of these into what's called a link tree. And if you aren't aware, this is a simple service where you can add all of your social media links and they combine them into one page for free. And thus you can include that link to that one page on your, for example, Twitter account, your X account. And if someone wants to follow you on another service, they simply click that link and find that other service as well. They're not going to be going searching for the exact name that you have. So if your name varies between these different channels, if you've got a game name that is very common and somebody else has already taken the name that you had on X, they've taken it on Instagram, don't worry about it. Be flexible with the names that you're using. So this is a press release that we put out, a bit more full version of a press release that we put out for Neolithic Dawn. As you can see, it follows the same format. We have the location, the date, the details of the game, what the story in this press release is, and so on in that first paragraph. Now I'm going to talk about that media kit. It's really simple to develop a media kit. What you need to make sure is that you have key art in there, which is your hero image, it's sometimes called. And typically, it involves having some kind of humanoid representation of your game is a good idea. Something that people viewing it, that hero art, can immediately connect to and recognize. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the good guy or the guy you play as. It can be a bad guy, as long as it's got a face, basically. Then you also want screenshots. That's pretty obvious. Trailer and videos. We say trailer and videos because sometimes content creators will record their own footage. Other times, they will want what's called B-roll. I'm not sure, is that the name the same over here? Okay. So B-roll footage is footage that you have captured of the game, not like not doled up in any way like a trailer would be. Just simply, here is 45 minutes of someone playing our game that they can then cut up and use in their own videos. So you have the trailer, which is beautiful and makes your game look absolutely amazing, but then also some real footage of the game. Then obviously the press release, and in your media kit, do archive your press releases. If you put a press release out today, add that to your media kit and keep it there forever. Just make sure it's accurately dated. And the reason for this is, you may reach out to a journalist today who doesn't want to cover your game. But then you reach out again next month and they decide they do want to. And they want to see the history. They want to know what has happened as this game has come into market. And then game and company logos. And that seems pretty obvious, but you want to include JPEG and also PSDs with our PNGs with transparent backgrounds. And this is how you present it. Super simple. We use a Google Drive. Just include that Google Drive link at the bottom of the press release, as I showed you earlier. You can use the same media kit for both press and influencers. You don't have to be creating unique ones for different agencies or different people. Just label everything straightforward. Here's some video footage. Here's the trailer. Here's the logos, and so on. And once you've made it once, you can just continually add to it. In that screenshots folder, you have the dates, you have subsequent folders with the dates of when the screenshots were released. So a journalist who's just found out about your game today can go, I need some screenshots, click on that one, click on the newest folder, they'll find the newest screenshots. Keep it super simple so that you're not asking too much of the people that you want to report on your game. So moving on to communications. When we were reaching out to influencers and press for Neolithic Dawn, we did find that most of the influencers we wanted to speak to were slow to respond on email, but super fast on Twitter in particular. And on Discord as well. We obviously have an extensive list of influencers. But for different games, they like to talk on different channels for some reason. I don't know why. That's just how it is. And for Neolithic Dawn, they were very hot on Discord. So, as I said earlier, just because you've tried one method and you didn't get a response, doesn't mean they're not interested. Just give them some time, and if you've still got no response, try a different platform, try a different method of outreach. These are some of the examples of the press coverage that we have got for Neolithic Dawn. Again, this was all from one press release. We had a new one go out yesterday, but I haven't yet collated the press coverage from that. I hear from my colleagues in the UK it was pretty good, so yay. For Neolithic Dawn, the influencer coverage, we did a mix of paid and free, the content that was delivered was simply fantastic. People absolutely loved this game. I encourage some of you to, if you're interested, to see the kind of things we deliver, to go out and look this up. All of the influencer coverage from Neolithic Dawn and press coverage came from my company, Tiny Brains. So anything you find online, that's from us. And this is the short form content, sorry. The previous slide was long form content on YouTube. This is short form content on TikTok. So now I want to show you a really quick example of some of that coverage, just a couple of minutes from one of the influencer videos that went out. Can we?
Awesome. We want to get all this we can, because we've got to make. Shit, did I drop that? Yeah. We've got to make torches. There's a stick. still got sticks and stuff. What if I got meat? No, it's nothing. But I do want to tame some animal. Right, we'll kill that in a sec.
Okay, as you can see, that was an influencer who literally just played the game and showed that he was having a good time and enjoying it, which is the authenticity that we want. Because the people watching that, the audiences watching that, will be taking in, this guy is enjoying playing this game and having a good time. I want that too. And this influencer came about through our community initiatives. We spend a lot of time on social media and on Discord and on Reddit, as I've mentioned throughout this talk, creating relationships, creating communities. And so that gentleman in particular approached us, saying that he wanted to cover the game. And that is the holy grail, when you have press and influencers contacting you, asking for information, you know you've been doing your community activations right. And this is Neolithic Dawn's Discord. It is very active. If you're interested in the game, please join up and you can learn more about it there. You can see a lot of stuff that we post on the Discord. This is a random screenshot that I took like 2 weeks ago, a week ago, something like that, when there was nearly 1,000 members online at that one point, which is fantastic for a VR game. I've got to speed up a little bit because we're running short on time, but continuing the theme, Reddit. James, the CEO of Neolithic Dawn, is very active in Reddit, doing, as I suggested earlier, finding those key members of the community and working with them. We also took Neolithic Dawn to several events. James himself took Neolithic Dawn to AWE and Gamescom, equipped with a headset and just showing demos ad hoc on the show floor. And I did so at TGS 6 weeks ago, something like that. Just had a Meta Quest with me. Any press or influencers I ran into, here, try this. So I spoke at the beginning of this talk about the full marketing mix, and I'm going to reiterate, the full marketing mix is super necessary. All of these elements that we have talked about, social media, press, influencers, online communities and offline communities, they are all important. If you find after 4, 5, 6 months, one part is excelling, then of course double down on that and make that your strength. But don't disregard any platform before you've tried it. And with your full marketing mix, this is what you'll get. Neolithic Dawn launched as a top seller on the MetaQuest store, and we were all very proud. So this is me, Tiny Brains. This is the kind of work that we do. I'm not sure. Yeah, no, it's all in Japanese. Yeah. If you are interested in any of these things, social media, community, creator content posts, store, that's like store management, so Steam updates and so on, press, getting the press on board, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'd love to talk to you. If you like, there's my email address, my WeChat, and my LinkedIn. I'm happy to chat anytime about anything you're working on. Thank you very much.
以上になります。そうですね、もうお時間になりましたので、本日改めましてお時間ありがとうございました。